Hello, it's Karen from Vintage Style Journal Creations. As promised, I'm going to be showing you how to make one of these and perhaps one of these, which is pretty much the same style of just only this one's a little bit bigger. This fabric is just a very fine fabric. I'm not really sure exactly what you would call it. It feels like a little bit of a taffeta or something like that, but the reason why I've got the roses on this little cushion cover is because I just wanted to show you the type of fabric a little bit closer. That's it there. They're just cushion covers that I bought 2 for $3 at the op shop, and what I've done is I've cut the back off the cushion of this one here, and I've cut strips probably about 2 inches wide. It just depends on the size. Obviously the size of the flower will depend on the width of the strip. This one would do this type of flower here once it's all curled up after heating it, and this size here would do this particular flower. Now it's pretty easy, and I'm sure that I'm preaching to the choir to a lot of you, so forgive me if you already know this, but others have asked that I just do a quick demo of how I put these together, this particular one. So this is why I'm doing it. But what I've done is I've cut up the strip and I've cut it into, roughly cut it into squares. It's not all the same size, as you can see. There's no exact science about it. It's just about however you might feel you want the flower to look. So the more layers that you have, the bunchier it's going to be, the more fuller it will be. But with the squares I've chopped some of them in half and then again into smaller pieces, and then I've just layered them all up by putting them unevenly around on top of one another, and then I've just put a stitch through the middle just to keep them in place. And that's how I do this particular flower. Obviously you'll need a heat gun for this. I wouldn't recommend that you hold this type of material over a flame. You'd probably, if you're anything like me, you'd burn the house down. So what we'll do is I'll just show you how I get to this particular point. Again, forgive me if you know this already, but how I do it is I actually just put a couple of fingers together, and in this case it'll probably be just perhaps 2 fingers. Just roll the fabric around. There are an easier way to do it. Obviously you can just bend it, fold it over and fold it over and fold it over, and you'll get the shape that you're looking for. For the bigger flower I usually use the 3-finger wraparound, but as I said, you can double it over and then cut it. And I think because it isn't really an exact science, it's okay if you have different sizes. So what I normally do is just, and I know I'm not going to chop my fingers off, it's all right, I've done this a couple of times, but yeah, just pop some really sharp scissors in here, give it a slice through, and on the other side, yes, watch out for that hand, I'm going to cut that finger. No, I'm not. Okay. So obviously a better way, this is just quick, and that's why I'm doing it. And so with that, with the smaller flower, you can just save a couple of the top layers and just chop them a little bit smaller so that you're getting this kind of look in the middle. You can either leave these in the bigger size in the length, or you can chop them in half. I tend to, these flowers here I've made, yes, that's my bear suit I'm wearing, isn't it cool? It's really quite cool here in Adelaide, so that's, I'm all rugged up. This one here, you can see this little piece at the top here, they get a little bit smaller towards the top, and that's what gives it its bunchiness. And I've done the same, as you can see on these ones here, I've made them quite small. And I'll stop boring you with all the chatter in a minute, but I just wanted to show you can just chop them in half. So I'll go ahead and do that. I won't chop them all in half. I might leave a couple of those larger ones just to give it a bit of extra shape down the bottom. And flowers in reality are never, you'll notice they've never got even petals. They've usually got odd numbers of petals, so I tend to go with 7s. You can make them as bunchy as you like, or you can make them as loose and very open looking if you want to. So it just depends on the amount that you're going to do and the look that you're going for. These ones here are quite open, whereas this one here you can see is quite bunched up. In the middle of this I put sewn a little diamante into there, which I think gives it an extra bit of beauty. But I really love this look here, and this is what we're going for today. So I'm just going to show you what I do. Move that one back. Just as you can see, it's all broken and crooked. I haven't ironed this fabric. This is actually vintage fabric, so there are some marks on it. So just place them around, not rocket science, just go for it, be creative. It's your choosing day. You can choose however you want to shape them, but towards the middle I would go a little bit smaller. So I'll just make sure that the satin side is up if you're using a satiny fabric, just so that you can get, you know, the satin on the top and not on the bottom. It just makes it look nicer. I did actually try this on a different kind of a satin fabric, and I cut all the squares out, did all the hard work, and then when I went to use the gun on it, the heat gun, it just wouldn't work. It didn't actually melt. And I was sitting there for ages thinking, come on, it's just got to do it sooner or later. So as you can see, I've just sort of placed those there. I'll just move this out the way. I didn't count, but it looks odd to me, so I'll just pretend it's odd for today. So just put a quick stitch into the top. Where are we? This little escapee back on here. Oh, fingers and thumbs. Actually, we can go. Okay, let's do it. The thread that I use is normally quite a strong crochet thread. I use it because I got it at the op shop, like most of the other bits and pieces I get for my things that I create. And but it was, I think it came in a bag of probably 3 or 4 rolls of that for about $1 or something like that. So you can get some really good bargains at op shops. And my daughter and I go op shopping every Wednesday. We're quite crazy when it comes to that, and some days are diamonds and some days are stones. Some days we get really good stuff and other days there's not a lot out there. But it doesn't cost much for this type of hobby or craft, and you can just come up with some gorgeous things. This cushion cover that I'm wicked person that I am, chopping it up when someone's done so much beautiful work in embroidering ribbon onto that, and here I am chopping it up to make flowers out of it. It just seems a bit crazy, but you know, you just got to do what you got to do. You got to make it work. And I've also got a pair of I call them forceps. They're from work. I'm a registered nurse, and we purchase these as throwaways, and so I've been able to score quite a bit of throwaways for my crafting. So what I do is I normally use this and hang on to the back of it with that. You could do it with a set of, you know, tongs or whatever you can find. You can even, if you're very careful with your heat gun, can even just hang on to it or sit it down on the table for, probably just grab it like that, just so that your hands are not in front of the heat gun as it starts. I tend to put mine on high so it gets it done more quickly. But I'd recommend that you try starting off, if you haven't done this before, just try starting off with the lower switch on your heat gun. If you haven't got a heat gun, I know that people have done this over a naked flame to singe or melt the edges of this type of fabric. I don't know, you know, you do what you need to do, but if you're going to do that, be very careful, because this type of fabric, particularly this one where it's a little bit more flimsy, is more likely to catch on fire, and you don't want to end up burning your house down. So if you haven't got a heat gun, I don't think a hairdryer will do it. But this is something for those who are wanting to give it a go. And I think if you're careful, holding it over a candle, you know, at a higher level might work, or maybe holding it over a toaster. I don't know. All craziness happens when you're crafting. You have to come up with all different ideas for things. But anyway, I'm just going to show you very quickly how I melt this one, and then I'll show you the green one, or the gold one. Actually, it looks green, but it's gold. This one will take a little bit longer because of the fabric. It's not quite as flimsy as this fabric, but it's still quite a lovely vintage satin, I suppose. It's very light, so it's going to melt reasonably easily. But initially, what I want you to think about is when you're melting it, because what we're doing really is we're melting the fibres in the material, and they will firm up as they're melted, so they'll come into a bit of a shape. I usually try to melt the top parts first, just going under very gently underneath, and you'll see that they'll all kind of crush up like this one here has. So we'll get started on it. I'm not going to talk because this thing is going to make a little bit of a noise. I'll see if I can dub it out later, but I'm not really good with videos, so bear with me and we'll see what we can come up with. I'll just grab my heat gun and we'll get started. You have to be really patient with this, and you know, that big rose flower took me probably more than 5 minutes to melt all those petals, because I put quite a few petals in there. As you can see, that's the heat of the gun has actually turned that one up now. And we'll start on the next one coming up. Try to push them towards the middle, just so that you've got some nice shape starts to come about with the flower. Don't forget, this is not well, we all know we're not very silly people, so we know that it's not a real rose. It's actually a created, shabby sort of rose look. And you can make them look as full or as flimsy as you like. Just trying to get the heat up on this. It can take a little minute for it to get started because the heat of the gun isn't really quite hot straight away, which is good because it'll give you the opportunity just to get used to it. And it does take a bit of getting used to, and over time, the more you do, the easier it'll become for you, because you'll get to know your heat gun, get to know the top of fabric and how quickly it melts. You can see it all sort of sitting up there now. I'm turning it around to try and get the shape of it. You don't have to be really smart to do this. I can do it. It's pretty cool. Playing with, not so much playing with fire, but playing with heat. It's not meant to look realistic, so for anyone who has a little OCD-ness about them, you may not probably appreciate this because it's not your perfect look. But that's the look I go for. I love the fact that I can just make something look the way I want it to look with a little bit of heat. So you don't need to use good quality fabrics or anything like that. You just find something that might be in your stash of fabrics and just let your hair down. See what comes of it all. I'd really like to see, if you are giving this a go, I'd like to see what you do come up with in the end and how yours works out. So, you know, feel free to Facebook me, or you'll find me on Vintage Style Journal Creations on Facebook. And I do have an Etsy shop, and some of my creations find their way into my shop when I get the time to actually upload them. I work full-time, as I said, as a registered nurse, so I'm getting a bit hot. Okay, this is the time where I actually pick it up so instead of burning my fingers like a total crazy. There we go. You can see it taking some shape even from behind. The last couple of petals are probably the more tricky ones because you don't want them looking square. You want them, we start off with squares, but we end up with beautiful indentations on the petals because of the heat that we apply. I think I probably should have done a few more layers on this one. I think I'd probably like it a little bit fuller than what it is, but just getting the general gist. You can see how I'm curling it over and just moving the heat gun around to get the shape. You might find that there's a little bit of an odour comes off the fabric, depends how old it is. But yeah, it's really, it's working well for me at the moment. So there you go. So I hope you saw that and I wasn't out of shot too much. And that's going to be a little bit hot under there because I've just stopped it. But look at that, that's not too bad. Whoop. Not too bad, is it? It's kind of like a mini one of those. Might do the same now while I'm on a roll. Just do the same. You can see I've just got all the squares laid up here. Years ago I used to do these and I used to melt it over a flame with different material, and I do each little piece separately, but what I found with that was they just look really cheesy when I tried to put them all together. In the end they're all weird and wonderful shapes, and I just thought, you know what, this is probably a better way because you're getting it all in the same bunch. So we'll go ahead and quickly melt this one. I think it'll be a lot quicker. See, this one melts very fast. See that? It's already melted. So if you haven't got a heat gun, you know, they're pretty excellent things. I also do some painting, and I find that sometimes I need the paint to dry a little bit quicker than it does, and the heat gun on very low blowing, I suppose, helps it to do that, helps the paint layers to dry, because even though the surface of the paint might feel dry, the paint doesn't dry all the way through for at least, you know, 24 hours. So having the heat gun can help to quicken that process a little bit. I'm just doing this trying not to burn it. Trying to curl it over according to the layers. There we go. Put that one up. You don't have to overdo the melting because it's pretty, this one's pretty fragile, the material. So yeah, anyway, you can see what's going on there. It's like watching paint dry, isn't it? I'm sure that many of you have probably done this and thinking, oh, what's she trying to show us here? Something we already know. But yeah, look, I think, you know, we all have our different touch, and that's the beauty of who we are. You know, our personality comes out in the things that we create quite often, and shame if it doesn't, because yeah, it shows you a little piece of the person. So they're not all going to be the same, they're all going to be different according to how you do yours and how I do mine, and even, you know, depending on the number of petals you put on yours. I didn't even count these, but I can tell you it's probably more than 7. And it's my choosing day, I can put as many as I want on it. It's like it's your choosing day. So I don't want this to go any longer than what it needs to, but I think you get the general gist. With the little pink ones over there, I actually put the diamante in the middle because I didn't put too many layers in the top for the... I'm just going to hang on to this at the front here, just so I can manipulate these petals a little bit better. Try not to burn yourself. I can see them turning up now. So even though we started off with little squares, we've ended up with a nice shape. You can go the extra mile and cut all your little pieces perfectly round if you would like, but I just think this gives it character. And oops, nearly caught on fire there. Alrighty, I think I'm going to leave that one. I'll add on those petals inside because if they need some extra help. There we go. Okay, I'm happy with that. Alrighty, so as I said earlier, the width of the fabric will determine the size of your rose, obviously. and this one, this size here, would get you this size rose. And I've put them on a lot of my creations lately. I do lots of different things for journaling. So this little one I showed yesterday, that's just the inside of that, but I think that just really finishes it off nicely. It makes it something a little bit more special, a little bit more than just a mini journal card to write in. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have any questions or any comments, feel free to leave them below, and if you felt like this has been a reasonable sort of video, feel free to subscribe or give me a tick. Yeah, or come and visit me on my Facebook site at Vintage Style Journal Creations. I'd love to catch up with you. Bye for now.